Well, welcome everyone. My name is Shireen Washington. I am the podcast host for the Spirituality and Dentistry podcast. I'm also a master sales trainer, speaker, and coach for Real Talk Selling, and an inner peace consultant with my new business, Craving Zen. I am so super excited to have my guest here today, Marni Blythe, who is quite honestly not only a well-respected influencer in dentistry, she is a very well-respected entrepreneur with her business Full Pocket Coaching, serving in the role as a fractional integrator, COO/CMO, which I'll let her share all that in just a few moments. Marni,
Hi,
thank you for being here with me, my friend.
thank you for the invitation. I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you, Shireen.
You're welcome. And this is my buddy, y'all. This is
You're
my
my friend. We're friends.
We are friends. How do we communicate, Marni? How do we communicate? Let everybody know who's watching this how we communicate.
The messenger all day. We just send little messages back and forth, voice messages all the day.
And I think I look forward to yours and you look forward to mine.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I have one I still need to respond to. So sorry about that.
It's all good, girl. You know how long it takes me sometimes to respond to those things. Well, what I would love to do, because one of the things that we do together is we build each other up with whatever we need.
Yeah.
And you pray for me and I pray for you. So I would love to start this podcast episode with the prayer for today. And I usually read out of this Centering Prayers by Peter Haas. This is a book that my spiritual director always reads out of, and it always seems to be right on time. So the prayer for today is titled Unveiling My Falseness with Love. Unveiling my falseness with love. Lord Jesus, my teacher, you are my teacher. Unveil my falseness with your love. Help me see that there is nothing I need to hide from you. Heal the intentions of my heart so I can love and serve with freedom and generosity. Amen.
Amen. And so it is.
And so it is. And
Yeah.
so it is. So, Marni, what I would love to do, because Marni is a member of Spirituality and Dentistry, I would love for you to first talk a little bit about the gift of who you are and what you bring to dentistry with Full Pocket Coaching.
Thank you so much. So we have discovered in the market that there is a real need for our incredible dentists who often have such big vision, right? They're these visionary, they're incredible at what they do. However, often there is a disconnect between that vision and how that vision actually gets executed on. And so you can have a million great ideas, but at the end of the day, if you can't bring that vision to the ground and move your team to help you to execute on that, and often you're the one doing all of those things because there is that disconnect, then you're never going to really be successful in your practice in the way that you probably want to be. And you're probably going to have some burnout as well. So what we do, so I am what I call a fractional integrator, and that means I actually help integrate into the practice through directly working with that practice owner and that leadership team so that everything that you want to have happen actually happens. So I make it happen. COO, so that means operationally, I come in to work side by side with your team. And then I also have an extensive background in marketing and communications, stemming from starting a career in New York City while concurrently going to New York University and working corporately for many, many years in the marketing arena. So our team, so it brings C-level executives in as needed, and we can do that across the country. And I really love working actually on site with my doctors, anywhere from 2 to 15 hours per week to really help them get that traction that they're looking for. Essentially, that's what we do.
You know what I love about what you do? I get prayer requests from dentists that have staffing problems. Seriously. People reach out to me on Facebook. Oh my goodness, I had somebody that's been working for me, and I just got a letter of resignation. Please
Mm.
pray for me. How would you say what you do as a fractional integrator is beneficial to some of these offices that, unfortunately, as much as we want to believe that folks are going to be around, maybe folks are leaving and transitioning on, but they need additional support. Do you serve in that capacity? How do you support offices in that respect?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, as goes the leadership team, goes the rest of your organization. So to the extent that you are aligned with your practice manager, with your assistants, with everybody, that is how you're going to retain your team. So the first thing is, do you have a clear sense of what your core values are? And not just, well, we work in integrity, we have excellent patient care. Are they written down? And does everybody know how to make decisions based upon those core values? One. Two, do you have a clearly defined mission statement, which is what you do and why you do it? And that's your purpose, right? That's the touchstone, right? That's what you come back to when things get hard, right? Are you communicating clearly and regularly and transparently? So those are all foundational things. And often I come into practices and we're working so much in the business that we're not taking time to work on the business. So, and we're having meetings to have meetings to have meetings, which is very frustrating because the meetings never get you anywhere, right? Because there's not accountability assigned. So when you start to put all those pieces in place, then a funny thing starts to happen. That's called retention, because it's very simple at the end of the day. People just want to know where they stand. People want to feel appreciated for what they do. People want to know that they're safe, that there's psychological safety. And so when we're actively managing communications, when we're proactively doing that, then that whole retention thing starts to work better. And the other piece of it is when we have what we call an accountability chart, which is different than an organizational chart, which says not just this is my title, I'm an assistant. It says, no, I'm an assistant and I am responsible for these 5 things. Because then I know and I have clarity, clear is kind, unclear is unkind, right? I say this every day, constantly, because where there's clarity, I know and I'm responsible. And then I'm not getting blamed for something that's not my fault, or I'm getting rewarded for something that I have done well. So that's when we start to create a culture around those things. And then we can go, is this the right person in the right seat? Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have capacity for it? And then if they're not the right person in the right seat, then that's okay. And we can move on and we'll put the right person in the right seat. But without clear accountability, and really having that understanding, then it's kind of impossible to do that.
Mm. Now, I know you are a believer. We talk about that. Okay. In the work that you do I have a 2-part question. With the work that you do you believe there is room for spirituality? And if you do believe that there's room for spirituality, do you weave that in? If so, how? How are you weaving that in with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about me being a believer, right? So let me just kind of clarify. So I grew up Jewish, right? So for me, I do love Jesus. However, I have a different opinion in that I don't believe he is the Messiah and the Savior. However, that does not negate that I still think he's an incredible he is incredible, right? There's not a lot of Jewish people who often see it from that perspective. And one of the things that I love, I'm just going to side note about spirituality and dentistry, is that there is room for people who have different religious beliefs. Just like in dental practice, not everybody is going to think, one certain way. So why I love spirituality is because being spiritual doesn't necessarily mean being religious.
Absolutely. Right? We talk about that every episode. That's right.
That's exactly it. So I believe that there is a power greater than all of us. I believe that when we trust and we release control and we are able to be in a place of just constantly like, what am I supposed to do next? Guide me. That is when the magic happens, right? But there's this interesting thing that often happens between business and spirituality. And often if we go into a realm where we're too spiritual, then can be seen as more woo or out there, or, so I think it's kind of it can be a challenge, can it? It can be a challenge to bring spirituality into the business place. I think it's even a bigger challenge to bring religion in. And I think that's where you start to dance in a really challenging arena. But from a spiritual perspective, I think the way that I typically go about it is I kind of test the waters on an individual basis. And I like to figure out where that person is at. And if they have spirituality, then I can connect with them from a spiritual perspective. But my mission is never to put my beliefs on somebody else, right? That's not what we're here to do, right? But we can talk about there being a power greater than us. We can talk about how it's kind of woven into the fabric of everything. So I prefer to do more of this work kind of under the radar, with it underpinning everything that I do. And then from an individual perspective, kind of tease out where that person is at on their journey. And if there's alignment, then we can talk at a different level. But not everybody is there, and that's okay too. And we meet people where they're at on their own journey, and we have respect for that. And I think we have to be very mindful and intentional in how we approach that.
Absolutely. Now, you and I, we're in North Carolina, we're in the Bible Belt where there is a little bit more room and understanding. I know when I used to sell and worked at Clear Choice, in my office, I kept a devotional book on my desk. Patients actually really loved it. They would, if I stepped out, they would, oh, can I read your book or what have you? It may not necessarily fly somewhere else,
Sure.
Right? Certain things, behaviors and practices are more acceptable in certain areas.
Yeah.
Spirituality, which is why we were very intentional with that name, even though the vast majority of the people who chime in clearly believe the Bible cover to cover, but there's an opportunity for people to say, this is my faith, this is how I practice spirituality. It has nothing to do with religion. I like going outside. I like yoga is my form of spirituality, whatever. When you think about your practices, just you, Marni, when you go throughout your day, do you have a regimen? Are there things that you do, that you practice, that stand true to who you are as a person?
Oh, that's a great question, Shireen. And I know you've got lots of your own of these things. So, and I try every day to wake up an extra 15 to 20 minutes early. It's not every day that I can make it happen. There's some days that it just doesn't work, but the majority of days I try to get up before my fiance, my daughter, kind of before the world is awake, before the phone starts ringing. And I get my coffee and I get out my journal. And the first thing that I do, I literally write a letter to God every morning. Dear God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for my healthy body, my 100% healthy body. Thank you for 100% safety. Health and safety are the two things that I do gratitude for first and foremost. And then I start having gratitude and thanks for the health and safety of my child, my fiance, my bonus children. And I kind of start to, almost like a bullseye. Like I start to just kind of radar out, and I literally write it. Because for me, there's something very intentional, again, about putting pen to paper so that it's not just like the spinning thing in my mind, right? And so journaling over the years for me has been such a powerful tool, and I recommend it so highly. So the gratitude is what I start with. If I'm feeling a certain kind of way, right? If I'm feeling anything less than joyful, then I will do what we call like conversational writing, almost with myself, as if I'm my own best friend, or that God is talking to me through me. And I use my imagination. So I'll write, what am I feeling? And then I'll stop and I'll say, okay, I'm feeling. And then sometimes it's hard to know what that is, right? If I'm feeling off, I'm angry? Am I sad? Am I scared? Am I frustrated? And I'll be very honest with you, it wasn't until I was probably 30 years old that I even started to learn how to do that. Because in my younger years, if I felt off, I'd just cry. And I couldn't really discern what that meant. So I just asked God to help me and show me to be able to work through those things. And I literally write, and then I stop and I ask for the answer. And then it almost rises, right? That truth rises within me. And sometimes it's like, is that my voice or is that God's voice? And so how do you discern, right? So it's very simple. I saw an Instagram reel that I shared with my daughter, who's 9 years old, Sophia.
Sophia,
And
that's
yeah, you know Sophia, my little girl, my little sweet girl. And it was very simple. The voice that you hear, when it's a voice that's love, that's the voice of God. And if you hear a voice that's anything other than love, it's what some people call the devil or the ego self, or the lower part of you. So I always know that I'm attuned and I'm aligned when it's loving. I hear love coming back to me. So that is a big part of what I do. I also do I do meditation, and I don't often go through super long meditation just because of how busy my schedule is. Sometimes it's just challenging to do that, but I always try to take 5 minutes also in the morning and just follow my breath. And then again, it's that connection, right? Then I'll go to the gym. When I come home and I get in the shower, that's another part of my ritual where I just let the water come down and I think about connecting my soul self, my spirit self to my divine self. I close my eyes, and as the water comes down, I literally imagine like a string coming from my heart, like a golden light coming from my heart and connecting into my divine self. And I try to imagine anything that no longer serves me just kind of dropping in. And water, as we all know, has been used historically in ritual for so many years, and it's so cleansing, and it's such a powerful thing. Then other things that I do is I listen to uplifting podcasts. I listen to uplifting people. I listen to uplifting music. All these things are all contributory factors. And then if I'm not on site with clients, then I'll do a guided meditation in the afternoon, usually in my infrared sauna blanket if I can, or I'll just try to grab a couple minutes. And then I always pray at the end of the night and just having gratitude for all the things. So there's a lot, as I'm talking to you about this, there's a lot of things that I do. I don't know that I really realize how much of it that I actually do, but there's a lot of intentionality behind all of those rituals and all the things.
I love the variety, quite honestly, and all the and as you're listening, it does sound like a lot. But the more variety, the more you can literally have communication with God throughout the day, which is ultimately what he wants.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be in a one-on-one dialogue. It can be connecting to him with all of these things that you're talking about. And I think that's what a lot of folks struggle with is like, okay, I want to grow in my relationship with the divine, the God of the universe, who or whatever you call him or her. But how do I do that? And so if someone is listening to this podcast, someone who works in dental, um, someone who wants to try to integrate some form of spirituality into their busy day, do you have any recommendations with respect to how long it has to be? Can you incorporate spirituality in 2 or 3 minutes? Would it involve going outside or stepping away? What are your thoughts about that? Because I do have a lot of people that ask me that. I don't have the time. How do I do it? How can I make it happen?
That's a great question. Super great question. So I always feel closest to God when I'm outside, for sure. I now that it's getting warmer out and everything, I'll go lay in my backyard on the grass. and ground, right? That's an amazing way. And I'll
Grounding.
look up at the tree.
What is grounding? Can you, because for me, grounding is if I can't take my shoes off and I have my bare feet on earth, grass, but grounding can be different for other people. What is grounding to you? Is that the same thing?
Same thing, but I like to try to get as much of my body onto the earth as possible, not just my feet, if possible, right? And like that's to lay. And then, you know, if anybody who's listening to this, you can look up grounding, and it's not just a woo-woo spiritual thing. There's actually a lot of scientific evidence to support how our bodies work, right? I mean, if you think about it, I mean, often it's like, well, we're so different than the animals in nature, and like, no, we're all part of this whole ecosystem, right? And so we can recharge ourselves in that way. So nature for sure. But you know, like let's say you are a dentist, let's say you're an assistant, let's say you work at the front desk and you're in there at 7 o'clock in the morning and you're not leaving at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and you are minute to minute, right? So there's a couple of things. So, and I actually teach on this with mindfulness, which is an amazing practice. Again, if you're listening and you're not aware of what that is, look up practice of mindfulness. So you can do a few things. One is you can mindfully eat. So it's a good thing, like, so your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, a snack, being really intentional that each time you take a bite, you imagine connecting to God, right? Like that. And so you imagine like really being present and practicing presence. And you have to get quiet in order to connect. There's no other way about it. And our ego self will continually tell us all of the reasons why we can't, right? I'm too busy. I don't have the, you know, there's a million reasons why. And because it can be uncomfortable sitting with yourself in silence without all the stimulus that we are exposed to.
Phones, right? Being on our phone.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we are all so technologically addicted. I will tell you, I am super addicted myself. I try so hard to like put it somewhere, but let's just be real. I'm keeping it real, right? So our ability, so that's a trick, right? Every time you eat, taking 2 minutes when you first start eating to mindfully eat, being aware of each bite, what it means, what it's going into your mouth, what's happening. And that can be a time to connect. When you go to the bathroom, I know this sounds silly, but you're in there by yourself, and having the ability, you know, just let's keep it real. You're sitting on the toilet, right? And you're like, okay, God, this is a good time to connect because I know I got 2 minutes here, right? So do gratitude, right? Like, what am I grateful for in this moment? And feeling that connection with God. What do I need to know, right? What do I need to know? Guide me. I trust you, God. Show me what I need to know. What do I need to know? And so this is a practice, and it's not something that you're going to get right or get wrong. Some days you'll connect better. Some days it won't work as well, but it's getting yourself into the habit of doing it. So how do you create a habit, right? So you may be listening to this podcast and you're like, oh my God, this is definitely what I'm going to do. And this sounds great. And I'm going to go do this. And the moment you stop listening to this, I guarantee you will probably forget, unless you pause, go grab yourself some Post-it notes. I'm a big fan of Post-it notes, and write yourself a Post-it note. Stick it on your mirror in your bathroom, stick it on your refrigerator, stick it on your coffee pot, stick it on, you know, in your car, put it at your desk, because we need reminders or we forget. That's just how we operate. But the more that you can be intentional and setting this, and it's really personal to you, right? Wherever, if it's at your lunch break, before you start your day, at the end of your day, it's really just about being present so that you can be aware to be able to create the connection. It's kind of like anything else, right? Like if you want to create a relationship with anybody, you've got to create the time to connect, just like us, right, Shireen? Like we create the time to connect, but we do it in a way that works for our schedules.
That's right.
So creating a relationship with God is no different. God has a lot more flexibility.
Well, it's so true. And the mindful eating really resonated with me because I'm an obesity survivor. I had weight loss surgery to be 16 years in November. And a lot of people, when it comes to eating, especially you see, because I train offices via Zoom and you'll see it. They have their lunch, they're trying to learn and they're training at the same time. But how easy is it that before you grab your lunch, we don't even start as a team until maybe we have a few moments of silence and become present in the moment? You actually will enjoy your food better also as well, because it's not this like, sometimes you're eating so fast, you're not paying attention, you're not present with it. It totally, it almost makes eating like a sacred practice all in itself. So I love that.
Yeah.
Marni, you've been, as you are in my life, you are a blessing to me, but something tells me you are going to be a blessing to anyone who watches and or listens to this podcast. Your business is Full Pocket Coaching. Can you just briefly share, and also we're going to put in the description how you can find Marni. I would imagine you offer a complimentary strategy session. So if someone's interested in learning more about bringing you and integrating you into their practice, what is a good way for you to be reached?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website, fullpocketcoaching.com. Link in with me. LinkedIn is a big part of how I communicate with people. Instagram is another great way to connect with me. And yeah, we also do Chief Mindfulness Officer work too. So if you're finding that at your practice that you might need some integration in terms of how do we incorporate mindfulness, and that really helps with stress reduction, that helps with lowering anxiety, it helps with emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, reach out as well. And I'm happy to support in any way that I can. And Shireen, gosh, you're just such a beautiful light. And I'm just so grateful for your friendship. And thank you so much for inviting me onto this podcast. This is why we do what we do. And it's really to be that light for other people. And I'm just grateful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful, amazing day. All of our listeners and watchers, you do the same. Take care.